Welcome into the GOAT Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Neander. With you as always, the Fantasy Caveman, the Neanderthal. Go by a number of monikers here. But we're going to see if that catches on. What do you think? Hashtag Fantasy Caveman? I don't know. A little bit weird, but the Neanderthal thing has always been my thing, right? It's my last name, Neander. If you don't know me, if you're just watching the show, always been kind of an apt nickname. Got a little, a little bit of that Neanderthal vibe going on here. It's all right. I've always leaned into it instead of getting scared away by it. All right. Well, we're getting off track already here. We got a lot to go over. All right, folks. So listen, we're doing the second part of our review show of Week 1. So we went over, let's see, what did we go over? 6 games, I think, yesterday. Actually, it was Monday. We had a little technical difficulty. Didn't get the show up here. So it's Wednesday morning early, and we're doing the second half. So we got 10 games to go over. And by this point, you probably know what happened in those games, and you probably have an idea of who scored what because you've had to look through waivers. So I get that. But I want to give you my take on these games and my take going forward with these players. And, it's a season-long projection thing, not just Week 2 projections, but we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But we have our preview show starting tomorrow, so we'll get further into the matchups in Week 2 starting tomorrow with our show. So, jumping right back into Week 1 here, we're going to go over to Washington, where the football team, the Washington football team is still weird, the weirdest thing. That one's taking longer for me to get used to than the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers. I've been pretty good about those, but the Washington football team is, I don't know, it's because I just don't want to say it, but I wish they would have went with Red Tails. We'll see. But either way, the Washington football team, the WFT, which is apt for them also, they hosted the Philadelphia Eagles. Nice divisional rivalry here, and couldn't have been an odder game. I mean, you had a first half where Philly came out and looked very good. Wentz was going up and down the field. Washington defense was bad, just like we figured. And then after halftime, apparently Dwayne Haskins gave a fiery halftime speech, and they came out and whooped Philadelphia's ass in the second half. That's just exactly what happened. And they got after the quarterback pretty hard, 8 sacks on Carson Wentz, and that's pretty worrisome. I mean, we know Wentz is down weapons right now and just lacks weapons, frankly. But that's pretty worrisome, though, to give up eight sacks. Hopefully they get Lane Johnson back, and that'll shore that up a little bit. But in this game, Carson Wentz went for 270 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. Again, was sacked a bunch of times, 8 times. And most of that damage was in the first half. It was the second half where he just all of a sudden couldn't get anything going. Just the well dried up. The points kept going backward basically from halftime. It was brutal. If you were like me and played Wentz in one of your leagues, it was tough, man. And you're worried about Week 2. But either way, you got a few points out of him. He was near the bottom of the list for quarterbacks this week and didn't really do a great job for you. He didn't have Miles Sanders. And being that he didn't have Miles Sanders, you give him a little bit of a pass. He was a quarterback 23 or so, on the week, but well outside the top 12. So let's see. Miles Sanders was out. So Boston Scott, supposed to have all this opportunity. Looked really good at the end of last year. If you were, again, in one of your leagues, a different league, but like me, a Miles Sanders owner, I did have Boston Scott on my bench in that squad, and I felt really good about that. I said, hey, I had somebody else I could play. I think it was James Robinson in that league. And I still felt like, hey, Boston Scott is a kind of a smash play here. I wasn't going to play him. I was going to play Sanders if he had made the trip, and they said he was going to play. But they didn't, so I thought Scott was a smash play. He went 9 carries, 35 yards. Wasn't really involved in the passing game either. He had 2 targets, caught them both 19 yards. But really tanked your team if you played him and started him thinking he was going to be at least in the top, 18 to 24 running backs at worst. He wasn't even close. So Corey Clement got 6 carries. You're not that worried about that. It's just this one game, right? I mean, next game, if Miles Sanders is out, do you start Boston Scott? That's the question. We'll go over it in the preview show a little bit, more in depth. But my answer right now would be no. You should have better options at this point. And we know the pass catching options are the big problem here, and that's evident when we look to the stat sheet. Dallas Goedert was the leading target getter, the leading, receiver, all the yards, had the touchdown, all that good stuff, right? Both touchdowns went to the two tight ends. And it's just not surprising, again, with their lack of wide receiving talent and health right now. So you had Deshaun Jackson get 7 targets, only caught 2 of them for 46 yards. Jalen Reagor caught 1 of his 4 targets for 55 yards. Greg Ward was by far the most productive, catching 5 of his 7 passes for 31 yards. Again, not gonna help you out much there. And Zach Ertz here. So the big storyline here, I guess, is that Zach Ertz only had 3 receptions on 7 targets, 18 yards. He did have that early touchdown. But Dallas Goedert, 8 out of 9 for 101 and a touchdown. One of the top, if not the top, tight ends on the week. I think he was number 1. Yep. And what does that mean going forward? I don't think it means you sit, Zach Ertz unless we hear a lot more about this contract situation. But I do think it makes Dallas Goedert very playable as anybody else. He's the only situation in the league where the number 2 tight end is very playable on a weekly basis. So don't question it too much. He was playable most weeks last year, so it's not out of the blue. And if you're going to play, a Rob Gronkowski or a Greg Olsen or someone like that, I think that Goddard's probably going to have more targets than them on a weekly basis anyway. So not too much to look at positively here for the Eagles. Hopefully they get Lane Johnson back. Hopefully they get Miles Sanders back quickly and they can move forward. The Washington football team looked equally inept on offense anyway, at least for most of the game. Dwayne Haskins, 178 yards with a touchdown. No interceptions, so you look for the positives there. Antonio Gibson, you're looking for the breakout maybe, but 9 carries, 36 yards. Only had 2 targets, caught them both for 8 yards. I'm not going to do it for you. Definitely not going to be, for me, a flex play next week. I got to see it first. I didn't see it when I was watching. He had that 20-yard run. Fantastic. You had a 20-yard run. That means you had 8 carries, for 16 yards outside of that. And I got to wait. Peyton Barber was also equally terrible. 17 carries. Well, not equally. He was really bad. He was 17 carries, 29 yards. He did get in the end zone twice, but you can't count on that. So not playing anybody from Washington's backfield next week. And then in the receiving core, we had Terry McLaurin, who was very involved, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 61 yards. Wasn't a great game, but wasn't bad. And it should have been your 3rd wide receiver or your flex. So didn't really kill you. And I'll take 7 targets from McLaurin every week and hope he's going to make a big play on one of them. Steven Sims caught all 3 of his passes for 50 yards. Still a little bit outside the cusp of flexibility for me, so I'm not looking at that too much. Now, Logan Thomas, so the tight end, here's a story here because he had 8 targets. Caught 4 of them, 37 yards and a touchdown. So he was, in the top 12. He was number 7 on the week. I don't know, 8 targets gets my attention. So if you're already struggling at tight end, I do think you can play him and hope that 6+ targets and as a safety valve for Dwayne Haskins can become a weekly thing. He was their guy in training camp. No other tight ends got a target here, so I'm giving you the thumbs up here to go ahead and play Logan Thomas as a sneaky tight end for week 2. Go over it again in the preview show a little bit more, but at this point I'm playing Terry McLaurin, and again, you can think about playing Logan Thomas, and that's it for the Washington football team for week 2, at least for me anyway. So, all right, let's keep it rolling. We're going to go to Carolina. So the Las Vegas Raiders went to Carolina, took on the Panthers. A lot of new look here for the Panthers. New coach, new quarterback, some new weapons on the outside. Some things stay the same, some things change. But let's look at the Raiders first here. So we had a big game for Josh Jacobs. A lot of people, kind of were expecting a big game for him against the Panthers, or rather depleted defensive unit. Let's see, Derek Carr, 239 with a touchdown. I did actually play him in DFS. I thought it was a little bit of a sneaky, contrarian play against what I was hoping, against a bad defense. But, Jacobs got in 3 times. They scored 4 touchdowns. If Carr had one more of those, it could have been a decent game for him, 240 with 2. But the 240 and 1, I like his performance, but it could have been better against a bad team. Jacobs wasn't great, 25 carries, 93 yards and 3. So, you look at the good, he got almost all the work, 25 carries, you love that. You got 3 touchdowns, you love that. The 3.7 yards a clip, not that good. By far, the headline for me for Josh Jacobs is the 4 receptions on 6 targets. Really encouraging there, 46 yards, and that is the key, right? Because he should be a top 12 running back with his volume, but he is going to have a big hurdle to jump getting into that top 5 without, those 50 receptions or so. So this is a great start for him towards that. And Josh Jacobs owners are thrilled right now. Henry Ruggs looked awesome before he hurt his leg. He came back out. Gruden came out and said that he loved his toughness. And for me, an old school, coach like John Gruden, you want to earn his respect. And a young guy like Ruggs, who already looked fantastic, 3 receptions on 5 targets, 55 yards. He ran the ball twice, and that's a great sign also to be that just that involved, in different ways in the offense. It really means a lot because there was no preseason, so it's his first action of NFL, and I thought he looked absolutely amazing. I'm loving Henry Ruggs right now. If he has a completely healthy week, which I wouldn't, he plays Monday night, so you might be a little worried about it. But if he plays practices fully on Thursday, practices fully on Friday, I think he's somebody that you might want to think about getting into your lineup as a flex. Nelson Aguilar, he caught the touchdown, but there was nobody else that had enough targets as far as wide receivers that you're looking at. Darren Waller had a nice game. He had 8 targets, caught 6 of them for 45 yards, didn't get in the end zone, and at 10.5 points, he gave you enough that he was, good for you. It was fine. He wasn't very good. He was outside of tight end 1, so you don't feel great about that, but you love the 8 targets, so you're fine with your Darren Waller right now. Let's look at Carolina. Teddy Bridgewater in his debut went for 270 and a touchdown, no interceptions. Like the way Teddy looked. He did a little bit of everything. He threw the ball to the backfield a little bit, not as much as they have in the past. So your Christian McCaffrey, owners are a little stressed out about the targets. But he had a few games last year where he didn't have a bunch of targets. It can't be every game where he's got 7, 8, targets. So I'm not sweating it right now. It could have been better for McCaffrey. It was a fine week, but you didn't get a number 1 week out of him like that number 1 guy. He had 2 touchdowns. He was fine on the week. Let me just make sure. I want to see where he was. He was a number 2 running back. So foot and mouth syndrome there. My apologies. He was great on the week. He was a number 2 running back and got his 2 touchdowns, got his 130 yards. So yeah, no, it's great. It's crazy that I can look at the stat line and be like, oh, well, you didn't get everything you needed out of him. You got everything you needed out of Christian McCaffrey. Again, my apologies, Christian McCaffrey. Look to the outside here. DJ Moore, a little bit disappointing. He got the 9 targets, but only caught 4 for 54. So, you're not worried because you saw the 9 targets. And Bridgewater is a pretty accurate quarterback. It's just one of those games where they didn't hook up, they didn't sync up, but I'm not stressed with it. Curtis Samuel got 8 targets, right? They threw the ball a lot more than I expected, 34 times. So Samuel got 8 targets. And so did Robbie Anderson. But Robbie Anderson did far more with them. He caught 6 balls for 115 and a touchdown. Curtis Samuel caught 5 for 38. So a lot of those short passes where Robbie Anderson turned that one pass, beautiful pass, caught it in stride, and made a 75-yard touchdown out of it. So, you're feeling good about Carolina wide receivers right now, just as this game went. I know there were a lot of points scored. We didn't expect maybe a 34-30 game out of these 2 teams. But for Robbie Anderson to get 8 targets, DJ Moore to have 9, and Curtis Samuel still to have 8. It just means that Bridgewater is going to be throwing the ball to his wide receivers. Ian Thomas, only had 2 targets, so the tight ends weren't involved very much here in Carolina. So Ian Thomas is far off the radar for me right now. And Robbie Anderson is probably one of the top 2, wide receivers that people were picking up this week in their leagues, maybe along with Paris Campbell. I got to look at their ownership rates, but if there's one to pick up, it's definitely Robbie Anderson. So, all right, let's keep it rolling here. That game was better than expected. A lot of good things to take out of that game. This game was fun too, right down to the end. I enjoyed watching this game. Jacksonville Jaguars hosted the Indianapolis Colts. So we had Philip Rivers in his debut here, threw the ball a ton. I don't know how much to think about it. There was big storyline here was that Marlon Mack was lost for the year after kind of a strong start, and that's going to start a frenzy for Nyheim Hines. And I'm not sure, the receptions are going to be there, so the PPR value is there. It's just where's the ceiling? I think Taylor is going to move into that bell cow role. But Philip Rivers, 363 yards with 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. The unfortunate story of Philip Rivers kind of continues into this season with the interceptions late, trying to get his team, back in the game and go for the win. But you're encouraged. He completed 36 out of 46 passes for 363. Still had a 7.9 yard per average play, yard per attempt, and he's a sneaky, streamable guy. He's got a great coach, great offensive line, and I think that showed where he's able to make a lot of completions this week. So yes, Marlon Mack started off fast and hot, and then got injured quick. So I think the bigger storyline here is not only that Mack is injured, unfortunately. Jonathan Taylor owners are ecstatic he's going to get moved right into the workhorse role, it looks like. And then Nyheim Hines will be in on passing downs, and if the game script is there, whatever the case may be. I think Hines will have a little bit more work in the rushing game also. I think he'll have 8 to 10 carries, in most games. He didn't run the ball very many times in this game. The bigger thing here is that Phillip Rivers continued to spam passes out of the backfield like nobody else does, right? So, Jonathan Taylor with 6 targets, Nyheim Hines with 8, and Marlon Mack with 3. I mean, that's 17 running back targets in his first game. So I think that the trend is going to continue, and Colts running backs have immense value in PPR because of the passing work and that offensive line. So yes, I think Jonathan Taylor's got to be in that top 16, conversation, top 18 conversation, for next week, and maybe even higher going for the rest of the year. We'll see how involved he is. And Nyheim Hines is, a running back 3, I think, moving forward. I think the work is going to be there, and the 6+ targets is very possible on a weekly basis for Nyheim Hines. So I love that. Paris Campbell, great news. If you were wondering who's the young receiver that's going to be on the other side of, not on the other side, but the other guy getting targets that's not T.Y. Hilton, will it be Michael Pittman? Will it be Paris Campbell? It was Paris Campbell. You had 9 targets for Paris Campbell and only 2 for Michael Pittman. So, that may or may not happen every week, but for week 1, it looks like it's going to be Paris Campbell. He looked great. On his 9 targets, caught the ball 6 times, 71 yards. Great first week. And just really puts him on the radar for a guy you need to own. He should be rostered in every league, and if he's not, you need to go out and get him, make the room for him. He's looking really good right now. T.Y. Hilton didn't look great. He also had 9 targets. It was just more of the eye test, where he didn't look very explosive in and out of his cuts. I'm a little worried going forward, but I think that maybe I was looking a little too much into it. We'll see how he looks next week. But 9 targets, 4 catches, 53 yards. And then we look at the tight end. Jack Doyle had 3 catches, 49 yards on 4 targets. I think we're looking for a little bit more out of Jack Doyle. So moving into next week and beyond, like I said, you're playing both running backs here, Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor. In my opinion, Hines is extremely flexible. And Phillip Rivers is absolutely on the stream page. He just threw the ball enough, and the offense moved the ball enough that you got to look at him. So I'm definitely giving him a peek. For the wide receivers, you're still probably playing T.Y. Hilton. The 9 targets is going to keep you interested enough to keep you pulled in, although, like I said, I'm worried. And Paris Campbell, I don't know that I'm not ready to say he's a must-play by any means. But 9 targets, if you're in a 3 wide receiver league plus a flex, or you have 2 flex spots, non-super flex, non-2 QB, then I think you can definitely play Paris Campbell this week. So, see what you get out of him. Bigger story was Gardner Minshew leading a nice comeback against the Indianapolis Colts. Another guy that we're talking about on the streamer side of things. Minshew only had 173 yards, but he was 19 of 20. So just an extremely efficient game for him, especially in the second half. 3 touchdowns. I think he's as good as option of any as far as streaming goes for this upcoming week. He's not in a really bad matchup, so we'll see what happens on the preview show, but Minshew just continues to have that X factor where he just makes plays and he has fun doing it, and the team rallies around him. I like to see those qualities. James Robinson, if you're able to snag him, if he's not rostered, you should, because he took every single running back carry for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that was only 16. But the point is that Chris Thompson had no carries. Chris Thompson only had, I think, 2 targets. Yep. So really, it was the James Robinson show. And I know the thought is that they're going to be throwing the ball a lot from behind, but that could lead to a number of passes out of the backfield. He only had one target, but turned it 28 yards, so there was some optimism there in his pass catching ability. And moving forward, James Robinson is someone you need to be thinking about as your RB2 or flex, because he's going to have 20 touches this week, I would assume. So, we'll see what happens with James Robinson. I know there's a lot of great players out there, but he's going to be a 20-touch guy. So, on the outside, you're disappointed with DJ Chark. Now, thankfully, he got that nice touchdown because he only had 3 targets, caught them all for 25 yards and a touchdown. But without that, his stat line would have been brutal. But you're still going to play DJ Chark. Again, they didn't throw the ball that many times. They're going to throw the ball more than 20 times, basically every other game this season. So that was a little bit of an anomaly. Keelan Cole kind of came out of nowhere, caught all 5 of his targets, 47 yards and a touchdown. It was weird here, right? Because I don't see D.D. Westbrook on the stat sheet here. DJ Chark didn't have that many receptions. So I don't know if I'm looking at Keelan Cole yet, but something to keep your eye on. Laviska Shenault Jr., I think, is a bigger story. He also had 4 targets, 3 catches, 37 yards, really nice touchdown grab. But he also had 2 carries. So we know Shenault is a multifaceted weapon, and we know that the talk was that he's going to be used that way. And the 2 carries shows a little bit of that, just the tip of the iceberg in the first game. And I think Shenault would be the guy to have outside of DJ Chark on this offense. For next week, I'm still not elevating Shenault into week 2 must play, but he's definitely someone that needs to be rostered, I think, in all leagues, unless you're in a very shallow league, like a 10-team league. But 12-team leagues, I think that Shenault should be rostered. But we'll see. If he's out there, hey, maybe you make a play at him. We'll see. All right. Let's keep it rolling here. We got a bunch more games. All right. Ravens and the Browns. Ooh, this one was ugly. This will be quick. So the Browns looked terrible on offense, could not really move the ball that much. The running backs did not have much success. Baker Mayfield, we're not playing him until further notice. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt ran the ball 13 times. Chubb ran the ball 10 times. They were both effective in a yards per carry metric. 72 yards for Hunt, 60 for Chubb, but wasn't enough for your fantasy team, and you're definitely worried about the split. If you're a Nick Chubb owner, you're really worried about the split. You knew some of the passing work would go to Hunt, maybe a bigger share of the receiving work, which in this case, I think it definitely happened in this case also. Kareem Hunt had 6 targets, 4 receptions, 9 yards, didn't do much with them. But Nick Chubb only had 1 catch on 1 target for 6 yards. So, you're definitely worried about Chubb. He touched the ball a lot less than Hunt. Now, they were behind all game, and they were behind big. So, I'm sure that had something to do with it. You're not grinding the ball out there with Nick Chubb, your main guy. But, again, it's just part of the narrative that Kareem Hunt is going to get a good share. And for me, this puts Kareem Hunt, squarely in that flex position running back 3 for week 2. We don't know how they're going to be used, what the offense is going to look like, but they are playing Cincinnati on a short week, Thursday night prime time, and I look for them to take it a little bit more going on offense against Cincinnati here. So, I feel good about playing Kareem Hunt, honestly. And you got to play Nick Chubb, right? You drafted him in the late first round, maybe up to the mid-second round, so you got to play Nick Chubb. You're just sweating it a little bit. On the outside here, you get 10 targets for OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. 10 targets, man. He must have had a fantastic game. His fantasy owners must be extremely excited about it. Now, 3 freaking catches on 10 targets for 22 yards. So this is kind of brutal, right? So you're looking at this, and you got to be really nervous about it, right? They just don't have a great connection, it seems like. I'm happy they're still not at each other's throats. I assumed that OBJ, this would be the week, after week 1 with 10 targets, and his performance would kind of blow up. But it didn't happen. I'm playing OBJ for 1 more week before I say you have better options, and you have to stop letting the name blind you to that. So I'm going to let him go 1 more week against Cincinnati, see what happens, and that's that. Landry played great with the hip. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 61 yards. If you played him, which you probably didn't because of the injury, you were happy with it. And then we had the tight end story here. So the tight end story is that Austin Hooper, the big money bag man, had 2 targets, caught them both for 15 yards. But David Njoku caught all 3 of his targets for 50 yards and a touchdown. So you'd be saying, oh, well, is this what the split's going to be like? But now David Njoku is on IR. So Austin Hooper is going to get his chance. And thankfully for him, it's going to happen because I was definitely worried about it. So I think, again, just like OBJ, you're giving Hooper another chance this week without David Njoku. Let's see how he gets involved and let's see what he does. On Baltimore, you're playing everybody basically. Well, all right, I take that back. Sorry, Lamar Jackson killed it again. 275 through the air, 3 touchdowns, and 45 on the ground. So he was pretty tame on the ground. Only ran the ball 7 times. But when you're doing that much damage through the air that efficiently, why would you stop? Why would you run and risk yourself? Now, the story here for the backfield was Mark Ingram, 10 carries, 29 yards, didn't look great. J.K. Dobbins got both touchdowns on the ground. So there's a good amount more work for J.K. Dobbins kind of when it mattered in close. He only had seven carries for 22 yards. So Mark Ingram, touched the ball more, but he got both touchdowns. And with how bad Ingram looked, 2.9 yards per carry, Dobbins didn't look much better. Again, only 3.1 yards per carry. But this could be the door opening here for J.K. Dobbins. And I think next week I'm not playing either one of them, quite frankly. I know Mark Ingram's going to have a better week. If he touches the ball 10 times, he'll have more than 29 yards, obviously. But I'm still not playing him. I'm not doing it. And J.K. Dobbins won't score twice, probably, if he catches the ball or touches the ball 7 times. So I'm not ready to play him yet either, but I'm just monitoring the situation. It's closer than it was a week ago when we didn't know what was going on. So there you go. Marquise Hollywood Brown looked fantastic. 6 targets, caught 5 of them for 101 yards. Didn't get in the end zone. Would have put his game over the top. But he looked great. He's the man in this offense. He's the guy they're going through. And I'm looking for him to have a big year. He's definitely on that wide receiver 2-3, kind of cusp right there. So it's hard to keep him out of your lineup. You didn't draft him where you have to play him. But it's going to be pretty hard to keep him out of your lineup at this point. So, yeah, he's going to be tough to sit. Willie Snead caught all 4 of his targets, 64 yards and a touchdown. He should be on someone's bench, but I'm not ready yet. You still saw Miles Boykin get 4 targets. Mark Andrews got 6 targets. So, I think I need to see Willie Snead do it for another week or 2 and be as involved as he was this week before I would play him. So, Hollywood Brown, you got to play him. It's going to be hard to keep him out of your lineup. And then Mark Andrews, he killed it. 5 receptions on 6 targets, 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. You're playing him. You're feeling great about paying up, into that 3rd round, maybe early 4th for Andrews. You're not feeling, gypped at all right now. You feel great about it. So, yeah, you're going to keep playing him. Absolutely. All right, let's go to Cincinnati, where the Los Angeles Chargers went into Cincinnati and were able to ruin Joe Burrow's debut after being the #1 draft pick. Excuse me. Tyrod Taylor was a lot of people's favorite streaming quarterback for week 1 and looked awful. 16 of 30 for 208, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and didn't run the ball. And that was the other thing, right? If you're not going to do a lot through the air for, the MO on Tyrod Taylor was that you have the baseline of the rushing. 6 rushes for 7 yards. If you streamed him, you were brutally behind in the quarterback points more than likely. Now, let's look at the backfield here. So Austin Eckler carried the ball 19 times, and Joshua Kelly carried the ball 12 times. So both those things say something, right? They ran the ball a lot of rushing attempts. If you're an Austin Eckler owner, you're happy with 19 carries, although 12 for Joshua Kelly is a lot. What you're really not happy about is 1 lousy, stinking target for Austin Eckler. One target, 1 for 3 yards. Right? He caught it, hooray, for 3 yards. Now, if you go back and watch, my preseason shows, this was the concern with Eckler. I do have him in one of my big leagues, and he was a keeper for me in the 5th round. So that's the thing, right? In the 5th round, if he's what some people think he is, like ESPN guys have him like, RB8 or whatever it was to start the season. then great. 5th round is extraordinary value. And if he's closer to what I think he is, like RB 19 or 20 on the year, then round 5 is about where he would go. So it's not really a wasted pick. But I'm stressed out about the passes until Justin Herbert comes in. Now, they won this game. If they had lost it, I think that, clears the path for Herbert to come in quicker. But they did win the game. Now they're 1-0. And if they go 2-0, I mean, the longer they win, Tyrod Taylor's going to stay in no matter how ugly it looks, I think. So I'm a little worried about it. He ran well, 19 carries, 84 yards. Again, bigger story, Joshua Kelly. On those 12 carries, had 60 yards and a touchdown. So five yards a clip. And he looked really good. So he's definitely the number 2 right now. Justin Jackson, I think, is far back in that conversation for the time being. Joshua Kelly is the number 2 or the 1B to have on this team going forward. So, Eckler fans, buckle up. We're not sure where the ride's going to take us, but man, it's going to be a bumpy one. All right, let's go outside here for the Chargers. They were targets for the main guys. It wasn't spread around that much, in the traditional sense. You had 8 targets for Mike Williams, 9 targets for Mike Williams, 8 targets for Keenan Allen, and then another 8 targets for Hunter Henry, the tight end. Outside of that, there really weren't many targets to go around. So, the targets that were there, Keenan Allen caught 4 of his 8, 37 yards. There were no touchdowns through the air. Mike Williams caught 4 of his 9 for 69 yards, almost doubled Keenan Allen's yards per catch. And then Hunter Henry caught 5 of his 8 for 73. So not a very high catch percentage. Again, Tyrod Taylor was not extremely accurate in this game. And to be quite honest, the passes that went to Mike Williams, those soft, kind of floaters, were the ones that looked to be the most accurate and the most correctly timed by Tyrod Taylor. And Mike Williams excels at those, jump ball type situations. So I think Mike Williams is probably the wide receiver that has a little bit more value with Tyrod Taylor in the game than Keenan Allen, which is, stressful for a lot of people who have Keenan Allen. But I don't know that I love, him having to continue to hit Keenan Allen on these timing routes, these out routes. I just think what Mike Williams does is a little bit better suited to what Tyrod Taylor does. And we're worried about that. Hunter Henry had definitely a better game than I expected. I didn't expect him to have 8 targets, so that is very positive news for Henry owners. 5 catches for 73 yards is a very good game. He didn't get in the end zone, so he wasn't. I think he wound up just maybe inside the top 12. Let's see. Yeah, he was the number 12 tight end, so he wound up as a tight end 1. Hard to be upset with that, right? Going into next week, you're playing Henry. You're going to play Keenan Allen probably. You could get sneaky. I don't think he's going to have a very good week again, but maybe you have to play him. So let's look at our Bengals here. Joe Burrow in his debut, 23 of 36, 193 yards, no touchdowns with an interception. Now he did have a really nice scamper into the end zone. He ran the ball 8 times, 46 yards and a touchdown. Some people had brought that up, that we were underestimating maybe his rushing baseline, and that he was able to run the ball really well, even though that wasn't part of the storyline that you hear from him about him. And he showed it in this game. He looked pretty good running the ball. Again, I don't want my number 1 pick running the ball that much, but he looked pretty good doing it. And if you can get 25 yards on a weekly basis, that gives you a nice little baseline. Again, he didn't look great. I'm not willing to talk about him as a streamer or somebody to pick up, but there was things to be happy about. Joe Mixon ran the ball 19 times for 69 yards. The only thing to be happy about there is the 19 carries. Gio Bernard only had 1. So basically all the running back carries went to Mixon. Through the air, though, Mixon only had 2 targets, caught 1 of them for 2 yards. That's going to hurt. Again, you really can't elevate into that top 5 or 6 without the receptions or ungodly volume and touchdowns like Derrick Henry had, right? So Giovanni Bernard had 4 receptions on 5 targets for 21 yards. And I'll never understand, how and why this keeps happening. Gio Bernard is a great football player. It's fine. He's had a nice career. Joe Mixon is your more talented, playmaker. And, to me, that's 4 or 5 more times that you took the ball out of Joe Mixon's hand. I know he needs a break. I get all that. Why is it all the receptions? That's what I don't get. So hopefully Mixon gets more involved, but you like to see the volume there. look at the receivers here, a little web to untangle. A lot of spreading the ball around here. There were, looks like, 5 players with 5 or more targets. So nice job spreading the ball around by Burrow. I like to see that. A.J. Green led the way with 9 targets, 5 catches, 51 yards. You can say, hey, 551, that's not a great game. No, it's not. That's a great game for your first game back after missing the better part of 2 years, basically. I thought he looked really good. He started to get his timing back, and they had that 1 touchdown called back. You get that touchdown on there, all of a sudden it's a 20-point game, and you're thinking, wow, here we go, we're taking off. So, I think I'm on board with the AJ Green believers at the moment. I don't have him rostered anywhere, so I don't have any skin in the game, but I'm definitely encouraged by the 9 targets. Tyler Boyd, 5 targets, caught 4 of them for 33, was very uninvolved till the mid-late point of the game. So you're a little stressed. You definitely played him to have, I think, a little more target share than that. Gio Bernard got the 5 targets, as I mentioned, and then John Ross got 5 targets. Only caught 2 of them, 17 yards. Didn't do much with them, but it's encouraging if you're a John Ross believer, like at last round of the draft kind of draft pick. Then he got 5 targets, and he could be a deep threat for this team. I think the bigger surprise here was C.J. Uzomah catching 4 of his 5 targets for 45 yards, and that's just something to keep an eye on. Hey, 5 targets is solid. He was tied for the number 2 on the team in targets. Something to keep an eye on. Again, I'm not recommending to play C.J. Uzomah. Just something to keep an eye on. He had enough targets that now I'm watching. All right, halfway there. My throat, I don't know how I'm going to do this 5 days a week. My throat just feels like it's not going to make it. Can I play this louder and speak softer? Will that help? Will it sound weirder if I just speak soft like this? I don't know. It's still reaching the, we're doing an on-air experiment right now. Now, are these smooth, sultry sounds better? We'll see. We're going to see if it helps my throat, though. All right. We're going to go to New Orleans here. The New Orleans Saints taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and possibly the most anticipated match of the weekend. I know it was for me. Listen, you got Tom Brady, that whole storyline, new place in Tampa, visiting Drew Brees, 2 fellow, future first ballot Hall of Famers, all that good stuff. But in reality, they both are very, very, important to fantasy football this year. Not only for themselves, but also for quite a number of their weapons on their team here. So we're gonna start with Tampa Bay. Tom Brady didn't have the best game, but he did put up enough points that you were fine if you played him. You were pretty happy with it. He got in the end zone 3 different occasions. He threw the ball in there twice and ran it once. So he went for, was it like 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, and then he got in the end zone again. So yeah, he was the number 10 quarterback on the week. So if you drafted him, probably around QB 10. So you can't be upset with it. You're fine with it. And looking forward, he's not going to be playing teams as good as New Orleans. He should have a healthier Mike Evans, and should just have a little better, handle on the Bruce Arians offense and connection with the wide receivers. I think it goes up from here, and that's positive. 240 with 3 total touchdowns. I think that's a positive thing against this New Orleans defense. Fortunately, they did lose the game 34-23, lost it quite handily. So it wasn't great for the football team, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but for fantasy, I think it looked pretty good. Let's look out to the running backs here. Ronald Jones led the way by far with 17 carries, 66 yards. Looked pretty good with those carries. I know it's 3.9 yards a clip. Doesn't look great in that sense, but he looked okay. He had 3 targets, caught 2 of them for 16 yards. I think the important thing here is that he was definitely the featured back by far. Leonard Fournette did get a little bit of work. He had 5 carries, but got 5 yards on those 5 carries, right? He did have 1 target. He caught it. 14 yards. It was a nice little nifty catch there. Nothing big, but it was there. So, Bridgewater. Fournette could definitely get more involved, as we move forward. It was his first week. He wasn't there for very long. He could be getting more involved, but, if you're a Ronald Jones guy, you were happy he got the bulk of the work. And I think you can still play Ronald Jones this upcoming week. He looked pretty good, got the bulk of the work. Offense should get better. They should have more scoring opportunities. So, yeah, I think you're playing Ronald Jones. And let's look outside here. So this week's not going to be indicative of every week, considering the fact that Mike Evans only had 4 targets, caught one of them for that 2-yard touchdown. And if you played Evans, which you probably didn't, if you played Evans, thank goodness for that touchdown. You're getting skunked. You're getting that big 0, which he already gave you 1 or 2 of those last year. So you're not going to be happy. Chris Godwin had a nice game. 7 targets, caught 6 passes, 79 yards. You're going to take that. He's going to get to the end zone with that a lot of weeks, and he'll have a fine week, and you're fine. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. You're fine with it. Scotty Miller is definitely on the radar now. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 73 yards. Again, I understand Evans wasn't fully healthy. At the end of the day, though, he caught 5 of 6 passes for 73 yards from Tom Brady in Brady's debut with Tampa Bay. And I think that builds trust and that builds rapport. And to me, that's important, right? So I think Scotty Miller, if you're sitting on somebody that doesn't need to be rostered, grab Scotty Miller. I'm not saying he's a priority, but I'm saying there are plenty of guys you could have, especially some of these rookie wide receivers that you could have on your team that you could drop right now and grab Scotty Miller and have a guy that's locked and loaded, ready to go. That could be 10 points a week. So, saying. Now, the tight ends were interesting also here because O.J. Howard had 6 targets, caught 4 balls, 36 yards and a touchdown. Had a real nice game. Put himself on the board here. Wonder where O.J. Howard wound up. O.J. Howard was the number 9 tight end on the week. Compare that to Mr. Rob Gronkowski, who was the number 35 tight end on the week with his 2 catches on 3 targets for 11 yards. Now, will Gronk get a little bit more involved? Yeah, probably. Was I saying all along that he's not anywhere near my top 12 tight ends? Yes, I was. And I think this shows that he's not going to be a guy that's on the field all the time for all the formations up and down the field. I think he's going to be a situational player, and I think that O.J. Howard has the talent that we've seen, and now he has a guy that can find him over the middle in those tighter spots, and he looked really good. So I'm not playing O.J. Howard yet, but I'm still not playing Rob Gronkowski. I already wasn't. I'm still not gonna, and that's really what I'm taking away from that, right? All right, New Orleans. They look fine, but Breeze, and again, I got Breeze. I think I had him down. I think I told you maybe at quarterback 20 or 18 to start the season, and he won this game, and they were fine. But he threw for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they want to run the ball. Latavius Murray ran the ball 15 times. Kamara ran the ball 12 times, and Taysom Hill ran the ball 3 times. So, they're running the ball a decent amount. That's what they want to do. And Breeze will be very good with the attempts that he has. It's just not going to be 40-plus attempts, and he's not going to throw for 5,000 yards anymore. It's just not in the New Orleans game plan. They play really good defense now, and they have a different game plan. They dink and dunk. They get down the field. They score. They keep the time of possession on their side. So, if you're an Alvin Kamara owner, are you stressing out right now about the usage of Latavius Murray? No. And the reason is because of the targets, right? So, yes, Latavius Murray had 3 more carries than Alvin Kamara did, but Alvin Kamara had 8 targets compared to 1 for Murray, caught 5 of them for 51 yards and a touchdown. And in Kamara's 2 best seasons, he was splitting time with Mark Ingram, and oftentimes was getting less carries, but was getting the bulk of the receiving work. And it could just be that he's the kind of guy that is most effective when he's in that 20 touch range, as opposed to trying to get to 25 or 30. And he scored twice in this game. You want the touchdowns to be there. I would rather him have a 15-plus touchdown season than have a 250 carry season where he gets injured, or where he's on pace for 250 and he doesn't wind up playing the full season because he gets injured. So, the more worrisome part was his yards per carry. He ran the ball 12 times for 16 yards, and maybe that's why Murray got in a little bit more. Murray ran 15 times for 48 yards. Tampa Bay's got a pretty tough front line, so wasn't that much room. But no, I guess the question is, if I'm worried about Murray, taking too much of Kamara's work, absolutely not. Kamara's just too good on a per touch basis to be worried about that. All right. Now, as far as receivers go, you're very worried if you're a New Orleans owner, because Michael Thomas not only caught 3 balls on 5 targets for 17 yards, which was brutal and definitely killed your team. I mean, that's your first round pick that got 4.7 points. But now he's injured. I don't know that he's going to go on IR. They haven't put him on IR yet that I know of. But they're saying a couple weeks at least. And man, so that really, really hurts. That only helps Alvin Kamara. It only helps Emmanuel Sanders, who also had a brutal game. He had 5 targets, caught 3 of them for 15 yards, but did have the touchdown, and that one touchdown saved his game. He had 10 points. Still not play. Still didn't really help your team, but it didn't kill you if you played him. Now, how much of a bump does he get for the next 2 weeks without Michael Thomas? I think a pretty significant one. I think Emmanuel Sanders is somebody that, you can absolutely put in there as your wide receiver 3 or your flex going into this Monday night game. They're playing the Raiders. And without Michael Thomas, Jared Cook gets a bump. Emmanuel Sanders gets a bump. Alvin Kamara, if it's possible, gets a little bit of a bump. I don't know if I'm ready to say anybody else does, right? Who would that be? Would that be Traquan Smith? I guess it would be. Does he get a bump? I guess in theory, but does that mean anything? No. So, Jared Cook had a great game. I was not on Jared Cook. He had 7 targets, 5 receptions, 80 yards, and kind of went away from that touchdown-dependent, narrative that I'm kind of on with Jared Cook. He had a lot of targets. He had a 46-yard reception, beautiful pass and catch, and looked really good. So, Jared Cook is absolutely, you're locked and loaded. You're playing him right now. Without Michael Thomas, he gets a little bit of a bump, and definitely he's probably going to be in my top 8 or 7 tight ends going into this week. So, yeah, absolutely. All right. It was a good game. We're falling behind a little bit. I'm trying. Where are we at? All right. We got like 10 minutes left. How many games we got? 4 games. All right. Well, let's see if we can battle our way through these. Maybe we got 15 minutes if we want to stretch it. All right. Let's go to the West Coast here for a couple of games. San Francisco in the last afternoon game hosted the Arizona Cardinals. This was a really, really fun game to watch. And I had to catch a lot of it later because I was really focused on the Tampa Bay New Orleans game for a lot of the late game. But this game was fantastic. Was a little sloppy, but was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of fun for fantasy. It was a lot of fun just for football. I mean, I was just like psyched. I was really trying not to be on my devices for a lot of the day and really soak in a lot of football. So Kyler Murray was 26 of 40, 230 yards with 1 touchdown and an interception through the air, but ran the ball 13 times for 91 yards and another touchdown. And that kind of production is going to put you up there, and he was the quarterback 5 on the week. Quarterback 5 is right around where he was drafted, his ADP, and he returned it for week 1. And, San Fran's a tough defense. So to return that ADP, I know both his games against San Fran were pretty good last year, and you'd like to see him throw the ball a little bit more consistently, accurately. But still, very, very nice week for Kyler Murray going into the second week here. Now, he did look lost a little bit sometimes, but it was fine. Look at Kenyon Drake here. Ran the ball 16 times compared to Chase Edmonds' 6. I'm okay with that split, 16-6. I mean, I'd prefer a couple more for Drake, but it's really not bad. You have to understand that he's never really been a 20-25 carry kind of back, before, as far as, for a long, period of time. And, if he's going to be that for them, they're going to, ease it in. And Chase Edmonds has been showing that he deserves some touches, so he's going to get some. Drake ran the ball 16 times for 60 yards, got that touchdown after Hopkins' touchdown was called back to the 1-yard line. He got that 1 touchdown that really helped your week. Without it, it was a struggle, but thankfully, you did get the touchdown. If you saw that there, I just spilled on myself a little bit of water. Sorry about that. So where did that put Kenyon Drake on the week with that touchdown? The running back 17, you drafted him to be better than that, but you're all right with it. He didn't get killed. He only had 2 targets, caught them both for 5 yards, and that's really where it's going to get better. 16 carries I'm okay with. I want 6 targets a week for him. Chase Edmonds had 5 targets, and there it is. So Edmonds had 5 targets, 3 catches, 19 yards, and the touchdown. So, if you gave 1 or 2 of those catches and the touchdown to Drake, I know it's like if. Oh, well, if, but I'm just saying. if he had one of those, catches, and it was the touchdown. And Drake all of a sudden has a pretty good day. He's in the top 12. You're happy with it, all that good stuff, right? So, all right, let's look outside. Well, have a game, DeAndre Hopkins. Welcome to the Arizona Cardinals. For me, I was wrong through 1 week, right? I'm not willing to say I was wrong, but I am willing to say I was wrong through 1 week. DeAndre Hopkins was the number 4 receiver on the week, had 16 targets. 16. And I would have told you that would have been his typical 2-week amount of targets, not 1. Caught 14 of them for 151 yards. 14. So you look at, Kyler Murray had 14 incompletions, right? He was 26 of 40. So when he wasn't throwing to DeAndre Hopkins, he was what? 12 of 24. So he's 50% throwing to everybody else and 14 of 16. So obviously there's a connection there. And maybe I way undersold Hopkins. I think I had him going into the season as the wide receiver, like 18 or something. And some people still had him as number, in that top 5, top 4. And he was number 4 on the week, and he looked great. So we'll see what the split's like going forward. But for now, Larry Fitzgerald had 5 targets, caught 4 for 34. Christian Kirk had 5 targets, caught 1 ball, 0 yards. That is brutal. And I'm a Christian Kirk guy. It stinks because, you hate to think these things through and then feel like, oh man, did I blow it? And maybe we did. We'll see what the split is like. But if it's 16 targets for DeAndre Hopkins and 20 targets for the rest of the team, then DeAndre Hopkins is the guy to own here, without a doubt. Dan Arnold, for anybody that was out there talking about Dan Arnold, he caught both of his targets for 21 yards. If that means that he's optimistic to you, then I guess that's what it means to you. But I know he's big, but Kyler Murray wants to run the ball. He wants to throw the ball to his receivers. That's what he wants to do. So, all right, San Fran. I'm really going slow on these. I got a lot to talk about. Garoppolo, 259 and 2. Very, very, very much on the streamable radar here. Now, he looked kind of lost at times, but made some great plays also. And I think once he gets some weapons back, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, going forward, he's going to be just fine this year. And I think he's someone that's going to be not rostered very much. And he's going to be in that discussion almost on a weekly basis as a guy, am I going to stream him this week or not? You're going to be thinking about it quite a lot. So, but I do think for this week that he's very streamable and looked really good. I know he was helped a lot by that long Mostert TD, which is not going to happen every week, but I still think he's going to be streamable. So, well, speaking of Raheem Mostert, who got the most of the work, 15 carries, 56 yards, but 4 receptions on 5 targets for 95 yards and a touchdown. Mr. Mostert, that makes you the running back 6 on the week. Congratulations, buddy. But no, great job. That 76-yard touchdown run, if I heard correctly, he ran faster on that run than any single player did on any play in the entirety of the year last year. And if I do remember correctly, I would have thought that he would beat out his former teammate, Matt Breida. I thought Matt Breida had like a 22.8 mile per hour run or something like that last year. So I would think that that was the one that he beat. But either way, dude's faster than people thought. And the thought was he was kind of a bruising, kind of back maybe. And there he goes, scampering for 76 and a touchdown. Great work though out of the backfield. Jerick McKinnon, great to see him back on the field. Had 3 carries for 24 yards. So hey, a couple of nice scampers there. And also had 5 targets. Caught the ball 3 times, 20 yards. Way out-snapped and out-touched Tevin Coleman. We know Coleman could have been limited because of the breathing, aspect of the bad air quality, and he has, the issues. So, that could have been it. But looking forward, Raheem Mostert seems to be the guy. They gave him some money, and that could be just what it is. Let's look outside here. So we know they're depleted. We know we're waiting to get Brandon Ayuk back. We're waiting to get Deebo Samuel back, more importantly. But as far as wide receivers go, Kendrick Bourne led the way with targets, 5 targets, 2 catches, 34 yards. Then after that, you get Trent Taylor with 5 targets, 2 catches, 7 yards. It was really brutally ugly for wide receivers for San Francisco. Most of the work was done by running backs. by their fullback. Kyle Juszczyk had a catch for 41 yards. Let's talk about George Kittle. 5 targets, 4 catches, 44 yards. We don't know his injury, update yet. So, if you're a George Kittle owner, you're just crossing your fingers and praying that he's ready to go. If George Kittle's not playing, then Garoppolo is out of any and all conversations for streaming at this point until he gets his weapons back. But if Kittle's healthy and Ayuk comes back, that's my assumption for week 2. Then I'm thinking about playing Garoppolo, if I need a quarterback, right? So only if. All right, let's go to our 3 night games real quick. Los Angeles Rams hosted the Dallas Cowboys. A little bit disappointing of an offensive game here. Dak Prescott, 266 and 1 touchdown through the air with no interceptions. Also ran for 30 yards, so that helped a little bit. But you expected more out of Dak and this offense, frankly. You wanted them to be more dynamic and to be able to push the ball down the field more, which they weren't able to do. So Dak, you're playing him, of course, moving forward for the time being, but you're hoping for more. Zeke Elliott did very Zeke, what Zeke does, right? 22 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. He did have 4 targets, caught 3 of them for 31 and another touchdown, so got in the end zone twice, made him the number 3 running back on the week, and that's Zeke, right? 20 plus carries, 100 yards or so, getting the end zone once or twice. There you go. Top 3 running back on the week. Locked and loaded. Let's look outside. This is a little bit disappointing for a couple reasons. So, Amari Cooper had a huge, target share. 14 targets. Really was peppered with targets. Caught the ball 10 times for 81 yards. Didn't get in the end zone. And didn't really look great doing it. I know I'm very biased. I'm a Michael Gallup guy. And Gallup did not have a very good game at all. 5 targets. 3 catches, 50 yards, and had that long one come back for that push off. And whether or not you think it was a valid call, either way it happened, and he would have been 4 for 90, right? And he probably wouldn't have gotten the end zone. He probably would have been tackled there, I think. If he got in the end zone, then great. Then he's 4 for 100 with a touchdown, and it's a good game. But if it's 4 for 90, it's still not a great game. But either way, 3 for 50. The bigger story here was CeeDee Lamb. Not only the fact that he had 6 targets, which should be, an expected amount for him, it's that he caught 5 of them for 59 yards and looked really, really quick doing it. I mean, I just felt like he was coming in and out of his cuts as fast as I've seen. It just felt like, dude was like lightning quick, and I love to see that. So that, along with the amount of targets for Cooper, is definitely making me sweat my Michael Gallup love, but it's early. And I'm going to give it another week before I'm off of Gallup here. The really terrible news here was Blake Jarwin lost for the season with an ACL after his first catch. That's brutal. Dalton Schultz came in to help him out, got 4 targets, and I don't know. They're going to be on the market here looking for a veteran tight end. I would assume they're going to be out there trying to grab somebody. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I'm not playing Dalton Schultz. Let's go over to the Rams real quick. Jared Goff. 275 through the air, no touchdowns and a pick, and still, it's just too worrisome to stream. They didn't score that many points, and both touchdowns came on the ground. He was somewhat effective, for what it's worth, 275, but, I'm just not putting him in that streaming category yet. You can think about it, he's sneaky, but yeah. Bigger question here is what to do with the backfield. So it was an almost split between Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers. 18 carries for Brown, 14 for Akers, only 3 for Darrell Henderson. I think that's pretty telling as far as where Henderson is on the depth chart right now. I think he's way behind these 2 guys here. Malcolm Brown had 4 targets to Cam Akers 1 and was much more effective. Now, Brown ran 18 times for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cam Akers ran 14 for 39. That's a 2.8 yard per carry clip. Caught his only pass for 4 yards. Malcolm Brown caught 3 for 31. So just did a lot more with his touches. And so I can't play Cam Akers next week at all, even as a flex. I think with how good Malcolm Brown was, and Sean McVay, kind of alluding to the hot hand, narrative that Malcolm Brown's going to have the bulk of the touches next week. I don't think it's going to be a large share. I think he'll be in the 60%, touches, 65%, where Akers will be 30%, and then, little scraps for Henderson. But I'm not willing to play them. I know Malcolm Brown will be picked up everywhere, and he should be. Malcolm Brown should be picked up on the waiver wire in all leagues, but I'm not going to play him next week because they ran the ball, I think, a little bit more than I'm expecting them to most weeks. Jared Goff only had 31 attempts. I think that'll be closer to 40 on most weeks. So let's go outside here real quick. Robert Woods had a nice game. 6 of 8, 105, no touchdowns. You want to see, the touchdowns go up for everybody, but for Robert Woods especially, he was really involved early, and I don't get this. He was peppered early. They were moving the ball, and then they just went away from him for like a quarter and a half, at least. Maybe the second and third quarter totally they went away from him. And they seem to be really effective when they use Woods to move down the field. He's always open. He always catches the ball. Caught, 6 of his 8 targets, so I'm not sure. Cooper Kupp, very disappointing game for Cooper Kupp owners. 5 targets, caught 4 balls for 40 yards. He was out there a good amount, but just didn't do enough, right? Van Jefferson, the rookie, had 3 targets, caught 1 for 31, and then Tyler Higbee had 4 targets compared to Gerald Everett's 2. Everett had a little bit of an injury. Tyler Higbee caught 3 balls for 40 yards, so well outside the top 12 and well outside the the lofty expectations for him coming into the season. I'm not saying that's where he's going to be, but his 7 points put him at tight end 22, just behind Michael Pruitt. Yes, just behind Michael Pruitt. You heard that right. All right, Monday Night Football. Pittsburgh Steelers visiting the New York Football Giants. And the G-men, looked all right for a minute. Daniel Jones made some really nice passes. I mean, Danny Dimes, he did. He threw a couple of dimes, no doubt about it. Darius Slayton looked fantastic. I know everyone's going to say this is, and I get it, because, well, he did it again without, what's his name? Without Golden Tate. And Darius Slayton, every time he has a good game, someone else is not in the lineup. Well, every time he has a good game, he's in the lineup. That's all I know. Every time he has a good game, Daniel Jones is throwing the ball. So I think I'm almost ready to get rid of the, because Golden Tate should be back in the next couple of weeks. And then if Sterling Shepard gets hurt for a game and Darius Slayton scores 2 touchdowns, it's going to be the same thing. But, all right, let's start with Pittsburgh anyway. Big Ben looked pretty good. 229 yards, 3 touchdowns after a little bit of a slow start. Took a few minutes to get kind of settled in, but was the number 11 quarterback on the week. 3 touchdowns through the air. You're pretty happy about that. Had a nice connection with both his veteran receiver, which is Juju Smith-Schuster, and his newer receivers, which would be Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. There was some connection, so you're happy to see a lot of that. Ben Roethlisberger, I think, is a guy that has to move above, maybe someone like Carson Wentz, maybe someone like Ryan Tannehill, in some of your projections, Matt Stafford. I know Stafford didn't have Galladay, but I think Roethlisberger, with no rushing work, which he's not going to have any, still could be a top 12 quarterback in a lot of weeks this year. So, big story here, James Conner knocked out of the game with an injury. Didn't really play in the second half. And Benny Snell showed out, buddy. All right, so, in the first half, James Conner had 6 carries for 9 yards, already looked pretty bad. But he did have 4 targets, only caught 2 for 8 yards. But, the workload was there, right? The whole thing was there. And then he gets knocked out, and Benny Snell comes in and absolutely looks amazing. I mean, he's running through guys. He's running around guys. He's making guys miss. He's throwing guys off him. It was pretty impressive. 19 carries, 113 yards, 5.9 yards per carry. Unfortunately, only had 1 target and didn't catch it. That's a little bit worrisome. But if he's going to be in the game all the time, he's going to get some targets. I mean, it's not like the targets went to Jalen Samuel, even though Jalen Samuel was on the field in a lot of those third down situations in the second half. I think you still have to just assume that they're going to work on it with Snell, throughout the week, and he'll have to be ready to catch some passes. That's just it. But, it's 113 yards. That's only 11.3 points. You're running back 29. DeAndre Swift, who had 3 carries for 8 yards, he fell in the end zone. Same amount of points. Zach Moss fell in the end zone. Same amount of points. Got to get in the end zone, man. But we'll see what happens. He's gonna have the reins if Connor's hurt for a couple weeks. And I don't know what's gonna happen for the season. But if any game that James Conner's not playing, Benny Snell at this point is going to be a smash play. Smash play. If Connor's healthy, then, Snell's going to stay rostered. You're going to play Connor and, hope Connor stays in the game. That's that. All right, let's go outside here. Deontay Johnson led the team in targets with 10 targets. Caught the ball 6 times for 57 yards. Struggled beginning. Muffed the punt in the first quarter and missed a few passes, but really looked good in the second half, and definitely seems to have Ben Roethlisberger's trust. There's going to be a lot of passes there, and I think that a lot of people saying that he's one of the biggest upside, wide receivers for this year are definitely hitting it. When you see 10 targets, that's a great, great sign. Juju had 6 targets, caught them all for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's also a great sign. 6 targets, sure, you want to see some more targets. Anyway, the rapport was still there, the connection was still there. Completed all their passes together, got into the end zone twice. That one kind of across his body floater, was a thing of beauty. And I was really excited. I got him in a couple of leagues. I was a believer in Juju this year, so very happy about that. James Washington got in the end zone, only had 3 targets, but caught 2 of them for 34 and a touchdown. And Chase Claypool, the rookie, caught both his targets for 39 yards, and one of them was an absolutely gorgeous, sky-stretching, toe-tapping, on-the-sideline catch for almost 30 yards. It was really a beautiful catch and looked great doing it. Ebron also had a nice catch, but wasn't really involved. That was his only catch for 18 yards, so, touchdown dependent at this point, not ready to play him, not willing to do it. All right, let's look over at the G-Men. Daniel Jones, 279, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, ran the ball for 22 yards, so had a nice game, again, through 2 very nice, but 1 beautiful touchdown pass to Darius Slayton. Absolutely gorgeous pass. Daniel Jones, this was the toughest defense he'll face all year, and threw for 280 and 2-2. I think you're going to start bumping him up. The volume's going to be there, and he's just kind of a big play quarterback. I mean, he's going to throw the ball 35 times in a lot of these games, and he's not going to be playing defenses that are as good as Pittsburgh. So I'm more in on Daniel Jones than I was going to the season. I definitely thought he could make that step forward, but with that brutal schedule, that was what was holding me back. But to do this against Pittsburgh starts to alleviate that, that concern for me. Saquon, 15 carries, 6 yards. Again, he's not going to play teams as good as Pittsburgh. He has been shut down like this before, and some of it's his style, but still caught 6 of 9 targets for 60 yards. So even in an absolutely awful and embarrassingly bad, rushing game, right? Which it was. You can't call it anything else other than that. It was really, really gross. He was still the running back 23. He was still a running back 2. I know, doesn't make you feel much better. I'm just saying, it's okay. All right, so back to the receivers. Yes, Golden Tate was gone. Darius Slayton still at 9 targets, caught 6 balls, 102 and 2. He went off, and I think he's the one to play, even when Golden Tate is back. Does that mean I'm going to play him? Yes. I think at this point you're playing Darius Slayton. He's been killing it for over half a season now, going back to last year, and I think you got to play him. Sterling Shepard caught all 6 of his targets, 47 yards. Nothing wrong with that. I think I still would rather play Slayton, but Shepard's still a good receiver and still on your radar. Evan Ingram, 7 targets, caught 2 of them for 9 yards. And, it's both storylines here, right? So 7 targets, hey, a guy like that with that talent, getting the ball 7 times thrown to him, could be, a huge, tight end on a week in, week out basis. I just look at the continuing lack of connection he has with some of these quarterbacks in these games where he doesn't make plays. I don't know. I'm worried about Evan Ingram. If you drafted him, you got him in the 5th or 6th round, probably. So more than likely you have to play him. So I get it, but I haven't been in love with him. I'm still not in love with him. That's just the deal. So, all right, very quickly. Last game. We're way over. How over are we? At least 10 minutes, right? Ooh, yeah. 10 minutes over. Let's kind of blow through this. All right. Tennessee Titans visiting the Broncos. Ryan Tannehill looked better than I thought. He had a nice game, 249 and 2. 14 yards on the ground, but I just thought he looked, really solid. Threw the ball 43 times, which is more than you expect. I'm not streaming Tannehill next week, but he's still going to be in that list of talked about people. Derrick Henry, 31 carries, 116 yards, 3.7 yards a clip. So Derrick Henry owners, hey, he got some points for you. It was okay. He was the running back 13, caught the ball 3 times, three targets, 3 catches, 15 yards. You're okay with 3 for 15 for Derrick Henry. Those extra 4.5 points is about as much as you can hope to get in addition to his rushing. You just hope to get a touchdown or 2, which he didn't get. But 31 carries, that usage, week 1 after last year, it's going to be hard for him to hold up with that kind of usage. But hey, he is a beast, so he very well might. On the outside, pretty interesting here. Corey Davis, I don't know how many years in a row this can happen, but so he shared, the target share lead with A.J. Brown. So that's, hey, that's good mixture of targets, right? 8 for A.J. Brown, 8 for Corey Davis, 7 for Adam Humphries, and then 7 for the tight end Derrick Henry. Or, excuse me, the tight end Jonnu Smith. And then, from there, just a few here spread around. But I like that mix. Corey Davis, though, caught 7 of his 8 for 101. No touchdowns. A.J. Brown only caught 5 of his 8 for 39. Very disappointing. Adam Humphrey, 6 of 7 for 47. And then Jonnu Smith caught 4 of 7 for 36 and a touchdown. So let's just untangle that quickly. Who am I playing? All right. Tannehill, I'm not on my list yet to play. Derrick Henry, obviously you're playing. You're just praying that he doesn't get hurt with these 30-plus carries every week. A.J. Brown, 8 targets. You still got to play A.J. Brown. He's going to make something happen with those sooner or later. It's going to happen. He's a big playmaker. Now, Corey Davis is the bigger question mark here. Who's taking the shot on Corey Davis? I'm not yet. I think they're not going to throw the ball 40-something times in most games. I think that he's done this before, and he's flashed and never really, got over the hump. And, if I have somebody that, a rookie, like a rookie or a young guy that didn't really do anything in week 1 and didn't really play almost any snaps, like a Mecole Hardman, yeah, maybe I'm grabbing Corey Davis, but I don't think other than that I'm falling for it yet. Moving to Denver, Drew Lock, 216 and a touchdown. Very, kind of a day we expect from him. We're not expecting fireworks from Drew Lock. Melvin Gordon ran the ball 15 times for 78 yards and a touchdown. Looked pretty good on the ground. Had 3 targets, caught them all for 8 yards. But the bigger story here is that Philip Lindsay, got knocked out of the game with a supposed turf toe. We don't know how serious it is. They say mild, but we don't know. And at this point, if Philip Lindsay's missing, any games, whether it's 1 or 2 games, Melvin Gordon looked pretty good, and you definitely got to get him in your lineup. At this point, I was down on Gordon, but if Lindsay's missing any time, or he's limited, then I think Gordon is a very good play. You definitely want to get him in there. I thought Lindsay looked, fine when he was in there. So, if he's healthy, he's going to get the yardage. I think Gordon slips. But if Gordon's going to get 15 carries and a few targets, he's going to be up there. He's probably going to be a running back 2. He was the running back 14 this week. And I think staying within the running back, top 20 is very possible as long as he's going to get this amount of work. Looking at the outside quickly, we know Cortland Sutton was gone, so it's hard to estimate what this usage is going to be like going after this. But Jerry Jeudy had 8 targets, caught 4 balls for 56 yards. I know it could have been better. I know. I think he had a couple of drops, but I thought he looked amazing. It's hard when you look, when I watch college tape to see if I see it, But when I see him play against pros, for me, I saw it with Jerry Jeudy. This kid's going to be a star, an absolute star in this league for a long time, in my opinion. And looked great. I think you got to have him in your lineup as a wide receiver 3 or maybe a flex. I think he's going to be, in that area moving forward. Tim Patrick, Deshaun Hamilton, I don't think they have value, once Cortland Sutton comes back. So I think you have to sit on that. Noah Fant looked absolutely amazing. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 81 yards and a touchdown. And looked amazing doing it. A lot of people were high on Noah Fant. He was going to be one of the big breakouts, and he did break out. He was the number 3 tight end on the week, and looked amazing doing it. Sometimes it's the eye test, and these guys just looked great. I thought Jeudy and Fant both looked amazing, and hopefully they can help elevate Drew Lock a little bit. Cortland Sutton comes back, and maybe we see a little bit of that explosiveness that people were talking about with this team. But We'll see there. We'll see. All right, y'all. Went super long, so we're going to finish out quick. Thanks again for joining us. Now, tomorrow, previewing Week 2 action, the first half of our preview show. Get ready for projections, who to start and who to sit, talking about injuries, all the other updates, everything that you need to get ready for Week 2. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to share and do whatever you can on podcasts, wherever you're listening to them. Just follow our show. Help us out. We appreciate it. Have a great day. Get ready for Thursday Night Football tomorrow. We'll get you primed up tomorrow morning. And have a good one. All right. See you later.